Hi, welcome to A Course in Miracles workbook class, brought to you from the Little Garden in Sedona, Arizona, USA. If you would like to study the course with others, but do not have a home group, you might want to watch our study group's home-style meetings on YouTube. For details of this and more, go to our website, www.thelittlegarden.org. Thank you and enjoy today's class. Or you could email me.
What are we doing today,
Oh,
dear?
today is one of the most amazing lessons in A Course in Miracles. Lesson 132. I loosed the world from all I thought it was. This is a lesson where he's telling us the big story metaphysically. And fortunately, he says, you know what? If you can't handle all of this right now, you'll come back to it. You'll get to it. Don't worry, but we're not going to pull any punches. We're going to talk about what it is, what it says here.
Yep.
Okay? So I loosed the world from all I thought it was is lesson 132, and it's on page 242 if you're reading along, which might be a good idea if you're doing the lessons for today, because we're going to more or less touch on each of the paragraphs and comment on them. There is so much in here.
Yep.
So you want to start with the beginning?
Yeah, I just want to say that, it's not just in the course. It's like in any kind of learning that we do, we take ideas that we don't quite understand, but we begin to use them. And we don't, see, the great thing is we don't need to understand it all right away.
Right.
Absolutely is no world. It's your thoughts about what it is. I mean, that's something that is an idea we plant in the mind. We may not believe it. We may not even understand it.
Yeah.
But when we recognize what it really means is that I don't have to be affected by anything that surrounds me, even my body.
Right.
I can be here to bless.
Very good.
Rather than be attacked.
Right.
Right? So there is no world. It's just your idea. We put that idea in the mind, not because we know that already. It's because that's what we're going to learn.
Yeah. So you probably have had this experience in the past where you just kind of put an idea in your mind and let it ferment all by itself.
Yeah.
And then after a while, you get it. It might be a question. What should I do about X? And after being silent with it for a while, you know what you're going to do. The mind works on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to work on this idea of I loose the world from everything I believe about it. So it says right at the top that we think that the world just is, and we're crazy. The Course tells us we're insane quite a few times. So it says,
well, when we're thinking with the ego.
When we're thinking with the ego,
Yeah.
which is like what we're more or less born with as our default program.
Yeah.
So a madman, let's say me, I don't question what's going on as long as I think that out there is true. But if I were to question my mind and say, oh, maybe I'm the projector of this situation. Maybe I can change it here and the world will change. If I can change my mind, then I'm free of thinking that I'm just stuck.
That's it. And so that's what he says at the end of this lesson. You may not realize that this very idea, I loose the world from all that I thought it was, will be applicable to everything in your life, right? You may not recognize that at the beginning, but what you will recognize is your release from believing that something outside is causing me to experience something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You will get the experience.
Yes.
That you are released from the world you thought was there by what? By your peace,
Mm-hmm.
by your contentment. I'm okay, nothing needs to change. For right now, I'm okay. That's the first experience we get.
Yeah.
And then we realize that everything is what we made.
Yeah. So we start with, as with everything in the workbook, we start with these little incidents or experiences that we have on a day-to-day basis, and we apply the idea.
Yeah.
So you might think about, something that you think is really real, wars, illness, disaster, death, any of those big horrible things.
Or the person that you find difficult.
Yes, yes.
Which is kind of closer
easier
to home.
To think about, yeah.
Or yourself that you find difficult.
Yeah, yeah. You find your body difficult, your finances difficult, any of that. You might want to just lightly apply this idea to that. Okay. So we're free to change our mind. I'm going to paragraph 2.
Yeah.
We're free to change our mind. That's the one freedom we have left.
Yeah.
We can either think with the ego or think with the Holy Spirit. That's the power of decision. It's binary. There's only 2 choices. Ego has lots of choices within its domain, but there's really only 2 choices. Ego's thinking or Holy Spirit's thinking. So when we recognize we're free to choose Holy Spirit's thinking, we're not stuck within all the complex thoughts of the ego. When we realize we have the freedom to say no to all of that and to choose the way the Holy Spirit sees the world, then all of our thoughts shift with it.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like a filter. It's like ego filter, which is like dark. Everything is dark. Everything is difficult. I'm small. I can't help how I feel. I can't help what's going on with me. Ain't it awful? That's the ego's world. Or maybe it's, aren't I great?
Right.
Either one, it's all separation. Holy Spirit's world is, there is only God. There's God and His Son, which are inseparable.
Yeah.
So you can choose either one. If you choose the one, it's a world of complexity, of sensory data, of all the ideas that I have about how accounting and the Internal Revenue Service works, all of that stuff. That's all in one place.
Right.
Ego's world or Holy Spirit's world.
Right.
That's my choice.
So why don't we use this power if we have it, right? Why?
Yeah,
the
good.
lesson is I'm free and I'm powerful. That's the idea we want to get across. So why don't we just jump to that? Well, what the Course is saying is you still believe this great power of your mind and the freedom of your mind. You still believe that you've abandoned love.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what separation means. I've abandoned love. Love abandoned me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're free and you're strong, but we hide that from ourselves because we think we misused it. We think that we really did separate. So as long as that belief is there, we're going to hide our power. We're going to hide our strength.
We're afraid of God,
right?
in other words.
But that's how kind the Course is, because it's saying, okay, all that's, the big enchilada, all that, there is no world, all that. But how do you feel right now in the moment?
Right.
And you can see that you're training yourself to change your mind and change how you feel, and everything changes.
Everything.
I mean, we wouldn't be doing this 40 years later unless that was our
it worked. Yeah.
Unless it was our constant experience.
And it wouldn't be our entire life unless we were so excited about how it works that we want to share it with you. I mean, how could we be motivated to do this all the time? And I'm not just saying just when we're on Edenshire. This is our whole life. Why? Because it works, and we don't want anybody to be stuck. We don't want anybody to feel like, I can't wait till I die, I'll get out of it then. And that's a common thought. Yeah, it's a common thought. Okay, so you mentioned how right now we can change, and that's paragraph 3.
Yeah, right.
You want to talk about it?
Well, he's been saying that you can really, I mean, it's important to understand when you're learning any curriculum, what are the stages in the curriculum, what is the order of operation, what has to happen, like you study fractions before you study algebra, what is the order? And what the course is saying is going to be available to us if we put the time and effort in is to realize the past is over. Whether it was a second ago or a minute ago or 10 years ago, you don't have to pay for the past, period.
Yeah.
We can get to that place.
Yeah.
And at that place, we can hear this ego going, no, you really are guilty and awful and terrible, and look how you treated that person, and you failed in all this stuff. Those ideas,
forget about it.
They're still there,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not acting from them.
We're not even giving them credence.
So that means I'm just in the present,
Yeah.
with my peace,
Yeah.
with my contentment, with my answer for this particular situation, and now I have the faith and belief
Mm-hmm.
that this ability to change my mind and everything changes is something I can use now always.
Yes.
And so what we were saying yesterday, a friend of ours, Poppy, who lives with us, course students, we said, we're going to decide that our future is going to be happy, period.
We're going to look for the light in everything.
End of story. My future is going to be happy, and I'm going to make that happen. I'm going to put my efforts into that. And we have that ability.
Yes, we do. So here's the interesting thing from that same paragraph 3.
Yeah.
Here in the present is the world set free. Not only me, but me first. And then the world is set free. And it says later on in that paragraph, you have try to, take this without guilt. Listen to this one, without any guilt. You have enslaved the world with all your fears, your doubts and miseries, your pain and tears, and all your sorrows press on it and keep the world a prisoner to your beliefs. See, the world is nothing but the world that I see is nothing but my beliefs. And the world is in pain because of my beliefs. We have to accept this without fear and without guilt in order to take up our power. So it's like we have to forgive ourselves first. And forgiveness is only necessary when we're coming from the ego, right? When you're trying to leave the ego and go into Holy Spirit's thought system, you need forgiveness. Once you're in Holy Spirit's thought system, you don't need to be forgiven, right? But that little place right there is like your guilt will be challenging you. Oh, well, if you're responsible for World War II, you are a horrible person. Don't look at that. If you're curious, there's a section in the text called Fear of Redemption that talks about how as we descend into the depth of our true being, we go through that place where the ego says, do not look there. It's going to be very scary and bad. Below that level, just go ahead, go through it. Like a parachute jumper. Just trust your parachute. Go through it, and you come to indescribable love.
I think it's important at this point to note, just based on what she said, is that when it says that this is all in your mind, that your mind's responsible for it, what that means also is that you're making up this world, but also what you're making up is this ego mind.
Yes.
So when we say the mind is responsible, we're not talking about the ego mind. We're talking about our real mind where we can hear the truth instead of denying the truth.
Yeah.
So part of what I made up was a private self, and I've given that private self a mind. So it's good because that's where the cognitive dissonance comes in. What do you mean I made up the middle of the universe in 1600, or I made up George Wallace getting assassinated in the that's where the disbelief comes in. But if you recognize that part of your mind is what you made up also,
Yeah.
and that's making the world,
Yeah.
then you're going to have a better understanding of your true mind.
Okay, so you just gave a picture of what in the clarification of terms, mind and spirit.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's just do this quickly. There's only the Son of God, right? The one mind that we all share. Some part of it, of which I'm included, decided to go into time and space and separation. And that is the ego, right?
Right.
So the big decision was made. We don't know how. It says don't even bother to say why. It's over. It's done with. So.
Yeah. And it was also, see, this is what's really important, is that separation was this request for special love. In other words, I want to be loved more or
More by
less,
God, yeah.
anyways, different from others.
I want to be different. I want to be an individual.
And so that gives us a heads up right now. That was the original separation. But that gives me a heads up right now. Am I trying to protect a private, special self in all these interchanges? Or am I standing on the true self? Right?
Yeah.
And you can train your mind to see, like I'm a philosopher. Oh,
I am so smart.
I am so smart.
Yeah.
Or I own a Corvette and a big boat. I'm so wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just get back to this lesson because it's so rich. I hope you read it a couple times today. If you can, I mean, you may have a lot of resistance to it, and it's okay. Paragraph 4 says, perhaps you think you did not make the world, but came unwillingly to what was already made. Oh yeah, sure. I didn't make the Civil War. I didn't make dinosaurs. But then it says in paragraph 5, there is no world apart from what you wish. And if we can accept that, the next clause says, herein lies your ultimate release.
So is it possible at that point to get a better understanding? If I can't quite get that I didn't make everything in the world, I can at least see that I'm making a reaction to everything.
Yes.
I can see that I'm doing that.
Yes.
This is my reaction.
Yes.
And the question is it justified or not?
And anger and fear are never justified.
Right. So it's not, that particular is not justified, and that's what we see.
Yeah. So I go with how do I feel? Like from chapter 4. So it says there's no world apart from what you wish. Don't think that it's prideful to say that I could, that I made the world. Don't think that that's prideful. No, it's prideful to say I know what's going on here, and Holy Spirit doesn't know, right?
Yeah. Or it's pride to say I'm just a victim of this. I don't, that seems like humility. Oh, I could never be that big. But it's really, when I say I'm a victim of it, that's an arrogance.
Yeah.
Because what we're basically saying is somehow I've made love just disappear, That's arrogance.
Yeah.
To believe that our little acts made all of reality disappear. I mean, what can be more arrogant than that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm smarter than God. So right in the middle of 6, it starts with the real challenge. It says, there is no world! ! There is no world. This is the central thought the Course attempts to teach. If there's no world, there's only heaven. If there's no world, there's no bodies, there's no separate beings. There's the one loving, unconditionally, eternally beaming love. That's what is underneath all of this complexity that we've made. So there's a similar kind of statement in the text that says, what if you recognize this world is an hallucination? What if you recognize we're hallucinating? Other places it calls it a dream, right? And we can wake up from the dream just by recognizing that we are dreaming. As lucid dreaming is the way it's talked about. If we recognize we're dreaming, you probably have all had that happen sometimes. You see your nightmare going in a bad place, and you kind of begin to wake up just a little bit enough to say, I don't like where this is going. I want a happier dream, right? And your dream changes. I'm talking about a nighttime dream. It's the same thing. It's the same thing here. We will still be in the dream, we'll still be in the hallucination, but it'll be a happy dream once we recognize it.
Well, it's like the lesson said yesterday, I seek a different world and not one that I made alone.
Yeah.
See, that's the separation. I'm making this, I'm doing it all myself. And what the Holy Spirit says, okay, if you want to make up an illusion, let's make up this illusion of a forgiven self.
Yeah.
Right? Because in truth, you don't need forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Right? So I can make up a story with the Holy Spirit that will lend me to go back to knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? And the story is, I'm still as God created me. I've never left love.
Right.
I can change my mind and have a different experience right now.
Yeah.
See, that's what's, to me, these aren't new ideas and metaphysical ideas. These metaphysical ideas have been around for a long time. But what's key with the Course is that you can practice this in everyday life, in those everyday situations. You can practice these big ideas by seeing, I changed my mind. I have a different experience. And that's what's so unique about the Course, because you don't have to be able to meditate for 9 hours a day or attain some future state. The Course is always saying you're waiting to be a miracle worker until you think you're good enough to do it. You don't need that time. Those miracles are already there.
Right.
And that's what we begin to understand when we recognize I can just be in the present.
Yeah.
And just changing this little situation where they were supposed to deliver it on Thursday at 9 o'clock. They didn't deliver it, and now I can't serve my client. And if I can't serve my client, I'm going to get broke and I'm going to die.
That's always the end of every fear, worry, anxiety.
It goes right there. And you can stand back and go, no. And it's amazing when you look at your thoughts, you can see, that isn't what I believe.
Yeah.
That isn't even close to what I believe.
Yeah.
But it's going on, and it's going on. And you learn to distinguish and separate yourself from the ego.
Yeah. So, the big story here is we are one giant emanation of love that is God. That is what we are. And when we were born into this earthly body, we had a default program that was our brain, basically, and our senses, that gave us the ego's story. Things outside affect me, my body being me. And what we're doing is removing that filter. It's not who we are, and it's never who we were. And the Holy Son of God can use this instrument here.
Right.
The Holy Son of God, the one self, can use this self, this made-up self, in order to bring the world into its home.
Yeah, in fact, there's a prayer in part 2. It's so beautiful. It turns to the Creator and says, the body here is not what you created. This is a dream. But let you use this dream to end all dreaming in the world. So it's not negating anything.
Right.
It's taking everything we made and turning it from a disaster, I'm a little body and one day I'll die, to this can be a communication instrument and communicate nothing but love, nothing but peace, nothing but joy. That's what this body can do.
Yeah.
And so that's the amazing thing. If I disidentify with the body, then the body has real purpose. It has a real value.
And it's not that the body has power, but the true self has more power available to it when this little individual says, I want to be joined with the will of God. Thy will be done. You always used to joke, the typical way of praying is, my will be done by thee, right? And really, it works because our minds are powerful, but My will is never going to make me happy.
You know-
God's will make me happy. God's will for me is perfect happiness. Lesson 101.
So that's what he says about the rules to decision, and this is really important about guidance. He said your major problem right now is you try and figure out what the answer is, and then you go to the Holy Spirit and say, "Is that right?"
Yeah,
You see
yeah,
it, right? So, but what he says is you're thinking about what should I do, where should I go, where should I go. He said, stop that. Remember what you want. That's what you do when you come into guidance. Drop your question, drop your seeming answer, drop the way that you framed it, and come back inside and say, what do I want?
And we want happiness,
Peace, joy,
love.
Remembering that,
Then we'll know what to say, what to do,
right?
where to go.
Because we'll have peace then.
Yeah,
If I'm not listening to the ego's voice, then I can hear the Holy Spirit.
that's it.
So that's the idea of how do we stay in communion with love, is we stop thinking about what is it I'm going to do, and we turn to that love and say, that's what I want.
Yeah,
I want this joy. I want this peace. And then that calmness, like you say, then we'll realize, okay, do this, do that, do that.
Say
And we
this.
may even have had the intuition and got the right answer. Doesn't matter. The key is remembering what you want.
and it's not like you want a red Corvette instead of a blue one. It's more like I want joy, I want love. You know, what do you think that Corvette's going to bring you?
Right.
Go for that. Go for the deeper self. Go for what's real and will last. Oh, tomorrow's lesson, which we're not going to be here, but it's a good one. I will not value the valueless. Shows you what things to let go of in order to know just exactly what it is that you want.
Give you that criteria.
Yeah, so I want to just mention how many times it says here in this lesson that by our recognizing the power of our mind and making another choice, making a choice for God's way of seeing the world, we're freeing the world. So I already read one thing where it said you've enslaved the world with all your fears and all that. But then there's other places where it says, like paragraph 10, what is the lesson for today except another way of saying that to know yourself, capital S self, the one self you share with everyone, is the salvation of the world. To free the world from every kind of pain is only to change your mind about yourself. Change your mind about yourself and the world will change. So many of us now are seeing the challenges that the world seems to be facing. I know, violence all over the world, refugees all over the world, climate change, political destabilization, all kinds of things like that. All of that can be changed by my mind. So when I want to change the world in terms of, let's say, animal rights, animals are being abused, whatever the disaster is, go within and say, I loose the world from all I thought it was. Because by doing that, you're joining with the Holy Spirit. And He'll show you what the world is. And then miracles can move from your mind outward to the world.
In fact, he's actually saying the world that you seem to see here, time, space, all of that, all the things that seem to be a world, what's really there is your true self that God created. We're seeing a world when really what's there is our true self. And that's why we can relate to others, because we are one with them.
Right.
We do share this essential being that God created, right?
Yeah.
So instead of seeing the world, we see ourselves, and we let ourselves be healed by allowing our healing to be joined with others' healing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us.
Yep.
Hope to see you next Tuesday. Whoops.